Oh, on Tuesday I saw another January movie from 2016 that's based off a true story. And surprisingly, it has hours in the title as well. It is The Finest Hours. So The Finest Hours is based off of the true events of the bravest and the most dangerous Coast Guard rescue in U.S. history. So the story is this huge ship gets split in half during this storm, this horrible storm. One half of the boat pretty much sinks while the other half is still afloat and is filled with the back half of the boat with all the engineers and all the crew members. And so while they're trying to stay afloat and keeping the boat from sinking, a daring Coast Guard rescue goes out to save them through this terrible, horrible storm. And the person on the boat trying to keep the boat afloat is played by Casey Affleck. He's the leader of that group. While the person leading the 4 Coast Guard in this small little boat is played by Chris Pine. And I have to say, even though it is quite cliched and pretty predictable, it is quite exciting. But yeah, it is quite cliched. You've probably seen a lot of this kind of stuff before, and you kind of know what's going to happen throughout it, even without looking up what really happened. But I have to say, it was still very exciting and intriguing. First off, Casey Affleck was really amazing as this person who doesn't really want the leadership role, but is kind of forced into it as he's trying to keep everyone from going crazy and trying to escape this boat, because they really don't have a chance of escaping in this storm. Their best bet is to try to keep this ship afloat. Half a ship afloat. He was really good in that role, and a lot of people as the side characters in that storyline were really good as well. And there was a lot of people that I recognized that I just didn't know the names of quite off the bat. But there's a lot of people, a lot of familiar faces. And I will say that's almost the most interesting part of the movie, is how they kept this boat from sinking as fast as it did. I thought Chris Pine did a really good job as well, and he's quite different from all the other roles that I've seen him in. Yeah, in this one he's quite the shy and almost reserved sort of guy, and it takes his girlfriend to propose to him before he even decides to get married because, well, there is a reason for that, because I'll go into detail later as I talk about her character. But he's one of those guys that's by the books. He does what he's told. He listens to all the regulations and follows all the rules. But he's still an interesting character nonetheless. I will say, though, that them trying to get to the boat wasn't all that exciting as it could have been. But then again, there's only one exciting moment in that, is when they have to cross this very dangerous area in the sea, which is pretty much suicidal. But they make it across anyway. The rest of it is just them being lost and trying to find the ship, and whether or not they should turn back or keep going. So that's why I was a little bit more focused on the Casey Affleck story as this boat is trying to stay afloat, because it's the most exciting part of the movie until finally both stories combine, and that's when it gets even more exciting. I thought Holliday Grainger was really good as the love interest, and the romantic subplot was actually handled pretty well and didn't feel out of place to me. Probably mainly because it's the first thing front and center in the movie. It's the first thing that happens as they meet for the first time after they've had long conversations on the phone, but they finally physically meet, and she's everything he ever hoped for. There is definitely a charm to their relationship and their chemistry, and the romance is actually handled nicely. It's one of those things like Brooklyn, where it's just too likable to deny. And she didn't feel like she was a wasted opportunity in the film, because she does have her own little story throughout all the events, as she's coping with the fact that her husband is in the Coast Guard, and yeah, it feels like at the beginning of the movie she doesn't quite realize that, even when she's like, okay, I want to marry, and he's like, no. And she's, well, you have to. I want to get married, and he explains that this is around the time when storms come. There could be a huge storm. I could have to go out into it, and she doesn't understand the dangers of it. And so she's like, we need to get married anyway. And so as the movie progresses, it feels like she's starting to realize just how dangerous his job is and just how he might not ever come back. and feels like she develops this understanding of just how dangerous the job is. So it seems like she goes through an emotional story throughout the movie, as well as become one of the key factors of helping them get in, which I won't spoil. Now, I did find this a very fun and exciting film. I didn't feel like it was that emotional as I would like. I didn't feel like it was that epic, but it did have times where it felt like the perfect storm and actually looked really great during the storm moments. And the things that they have to overcome and the things that they have to do to keep afloat is quite crazy and just very wow. Now, I will say this much, there are moments where it just gets really cheesy and almost overbearingly unbearable. And I'm not talking about the romance. That actually didn't feel cheesy to me. What I mean is there are moments where the music just comes in so over the top, almost saying, this is the emotion you should feel. You should feel inspirational, or you should feel sad. And it just gets overbearingly obvious at times. Maybe it's just me, but it felt like they were going at level 11, you know? They felt like they were going so over the top that it sort of demeans the actual meaning and the emotion you're supposed to feel in the scene. But other than that, I really enjoyed this film, and so I'm gonna give The Finest Hours 4 stars. I think that, yeah, that's my first 4 star so far this year. So have you seen The Finest Hours? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. And as always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was just my opinion.